Many people have got problems when trying to distinguish license for franchise agreements. Okay, so now we move to license agreements, and we are going to make that distinction clear. A license agreement is a contractual agreement through which one of the parts, called licensor, grants the other, called licensee, the right to exploit an intellectual property right. So the thing is that in a franchise, okay, in a franchise network, the good or the thing which is given from the franchisor to the franchisee, okay, is a full business model, a complete business model. Here in the license, which is something narrower, okay, the licensor gives the licensee, sorry, an intellectual property right, a specific one. Which one? Can be a patent, can be an industrial utility model, it can be a software, it can be a copyright, it can be an image right, it can be, okay, any of these ones. Also, it can also include technical assistance, feedback, and this is when license agreements become cooperation agreements. Why? Because sometimes licenses are just market transactions. For instance, whenever you get a new software, you have to sign a license agreement. A license agreement normally called a end user contract or something like that, okay? So in fact, you read or not, the majority of people don't read it, okay? You read or not the terms of the license, you accept, and so on, so that you pay money, or you are attacked by publicity or whatever, or you give your data, or you somehow pay something to get the license agreement, to get the license of that software, okay? So in that case, it's just a market transaction. You are not cooperating with the firm. The firm is not. It's okay. Whatever. Okay. On the other hand, sometimes the firm gives. Let us put an example with the case of software. Let us say SAP. SAP is probably the most important ERP software in the world, Enterprise Resources Planning. Okay, so in fact, SAP, when you hire SAP, okay, SAP gives you not only the software but also technical assistance, consultancy in order to install the software in your firm, to adapt it to your firm, okay, and in turn you give SAP some feedback, some learning about, okay, so SAP knows which have been the difficulties of their customers, so that in next versions of software they are going to refine it, and so on. So in fact, this is a cooperation agreement, this kind of license. The example I am giving you, for instance, Pull and Beer. Pull and Beer is allowed to produce garments of The Simpsons. Do you think this is a cooperation agreement or not? The answer is it's not a cooperation agreement. Because, well, do the Simpsons profit from the experience of Pull and Beer so that the show is better and so on? No. And Pull and Beer just hires the right to produce these clothing, these garments, but in fact, well, there's no mutual exchange of information and so on. It's just that, okay? It's just a market agreement, a market transaction. And a cooperation agreement is what I told you about SAP. It's something deeper. Which are the pros and the cons of license agreement? Well, for the licensor, well, it gets royalties, it gets paid. The licensor gets a payment normally per unit. Sometimes it's not per unit, sometimes it's a global amount. Okay, you can use my patent for this money, but normally it's per unit. And normally when it's a cooperation agreement, it's especially per unit. The licensor expands its services to new markets. It would be difficult for the licensor to do these things without the cooperation agreement. Also, the licensor gets technical feedback. It learns from the experience of the licensee. Okay, which is the negative trait for the licensor? Well, the licensee might learn from the cooperation agreement and decide to remove the licensor in the end, some years after. Okay, but well, this is not normally easy, and this is not normally typical. About the licensee, well, the licensee gets a valuable intellectual property right. That's good for the licensee. The licensee didn't have a good product, and now you have got the patent, so you can produce this product. Okay, normally the licensee also gets technology. And through a license agreement, you're linked to a prestigious partner. So we are producing products which were designed by DA, or we are using the software originally designed by DA. So we are working with the best possible people. On the other hand, obviously, this creates a technological dependence to the licensee. The licensee forgets to develop its own technology so long as they are going to have it from the licensor. Okay. Also, the licensee can do some things but cannot do some others because the markets and actions of the licensee are limited. I mean, you can sell these products, yes, but just in Spain. Or you can, okay, so there's a limit to the use. I am going to explain the last kind of contractual agreement, even though it is much different from license agreement, okay? And it's called consortium. A consortium is a long-run and normally also long-range alliance between different firms. So it's multilateral, not just two companies, many firms, or more than two in fact, okay? These companies create a common organization mode, and we are going to call this organization mode consortium. So the consortium is the organization which joins different things together to deliver cooperation activities in the long run. But this is very important. It's not a merger or not an acquisition. I mean, the companies which are working together in the consortium, they remain independent companies. Okay? Well, which are the main features of a consortium? Many partners, not two. Okay. Normally, the reason why a consortium is created because it faces big projects, too large for a single firm. So in fact, it's interesting to have different firms to deliver the same project. These different firms create the consortium. Have a look at the picture on the right. Well, this is Panama Channel. The works for widening Panama Channel have been assumed by a consortium called Grupo Unidos por el Canal, Group United for the Channel, and this group is in fact in charge of this enormous civil engineering work. And many Spanish companies are participating in this group, okay? And the thing is that this project was so colossal, so enormous, that it couldn't be assumed by a single firm without assuming also a very enormous risk. No single company would be able to do that without having an important risk to disappear. As I said, it's important for this consortium that it's not a merger. There's no joint firm, okay? It's not a merger. Also, the companies which are inside the consortium have got common interests, and they are working for these common interests. And each firm delegates some activities in the consortium, and delegates some people, some resources, in the consortium. And well, the consortium may be temporary. I'm going to define two kinds of consortium, okay? But maybe temporary means, okay, this consortium's Grupo Unido por el Canal, it exists until the widening of Panama Channel is finally finished. Well, in Spain, there are two main kinds of consortiums. AIE, which stands for Agrupación de Interés Económico, Economic Interest Group, which has got juridical personality, okay, and in fact it's created to defend the common interests of many firms, okay. On the other hand, we have got UTE, Unión Temporal de Empresas, temporary union of firms, which has got no juridical personality, okay, and it's normally developed to carry out a big project which is much larger than what individual companies can afford. So in fact, they get together, they create this temporary union of companies in order to be able to carry out this big project, too big for them. Okay, so with this, we have finished with these contractual cooperation agreements, and we are moving to the next ones, which are the capital cooperation agreements and the interorganizational networks.